All right, everyone, it's an unfortunate anniversary. It's the third anniversary of the failed Afghanistan withdrawal by U.S. forces when, civilians were running to try to literally cling to the outside of planes, and a bunch of U.S. soldiers were killed, especially Marines, actually, at the time. Semper Fi. They gave their lives for foreign soil, unfortunately, instead of for something sane. Could have been entirely avoided. The entire situation is this, and I've spoken about it a number of times, and Trump is clearly going to capitalize upon this anniversary. Let's not make any doubt about that, and he should. The Biden administration screwed the pooch. What happened is that Trump had brokered a withdrawal from Afghanistan. This is something that broadly the public supported. This is something that was necessary. It was publicly popular. The idea of leaving Afghanistan was a good one, and the fact is we couldn't stay in any longer anyway. So you needed to withdraw. The withdrawal itself was not a problem. Trump brokered an agreement with the Taliban and with the Afghan government, and through both local tribal warlords, to withdraw from the country under the condition we can withdraw our shit, number one, and number two, you're not going to sack Kabul, which they did, and overrun the country. The Afghan government will be recognized by the Taliban. And I'm sure that there were other, classified agreements behind closed doors. And the Taliban said, okay. And the tribal warlords said, okay. And the Afghan government said, okay. And Trump said, okay, we're all good here. Then, unfortunately, Biden is selected. I won't say elected because he wasn't really elected at all. He decides he wants to make the withdrawal his own because he doesn't understand foreign cultures. This is the biggest problem with the Biden administration's diplomacy. Like when he insulted the Japanese a few months ago. Like when he insulted the Polish, one of our closest allies in Europe. When he insulted the Hungarians. Shit like this is why Biden fucks up. And even Obama himself said, never underestimate his ability to do that. We've seen quite a lot of it. Thank goodness he won't be president again. Unfortunately, now we might be stuck with Kamala. Thankfully, I think that that's fairly unlikely. He moves back the date of the withdrawal. Now, here's the tell. He says, well, we didn't have time to plan to do the things that we needed to do logistically. Now, then why did you leave all the weaponry there? There's the tell. You left all the equipment for the fucking Taliban. They just had a couple days ago a goddamn parade where they were parading around this U.S. equipment, which looks like it's been perfectly maintained. I wonder why. Who gave them that money? The Iranians? No, probably not. Probably came from the CIA or something. Looks pretty good. They got a nice little military there. They're almost on the same order as Hezbollah now. Thanks, Joe. Real cool. See, the withdrawal would have been fine in those sorts of parts of the world. When you make an agreement, you must follow through with it. The Taliban had shaken hands on the deal. The tribal warlords through the government and the Taliban had shaken hands on the deal. There is no possibility that half of that firepower would have converged on Kabul, nor would the country have been able to be overrun had you stuck to the original agreement date. When you shake hands, when you say, I'm going to do this on such and such a day, in the United States, unless it's something really, really major, I mean, this is also really major, but that's beyond the point, and you shake hands on it. But then you say, dude, I'm sorry, I've got the flu, I can't come over and mow your lawn, I know that I was going to do it on the 3rd, can you give me a couple of extra days, my apologies. Okay, very well. Maybe I dock your pay a little bit or something like that. If you do it in Afghanistan, then you get one of your legs cut off. And Joe Biden and his administration are too retarded to understand Pashtun culture and why it's not a good idea to unilaterally say, I know that we agreed upon this date, but I'm going to push it back unilaterally. That showed them that you had no reason. I mean, if you're willing to not go through with one contractual deal, which is effectively what a peace agreement is, then how can we trust you to go through with any deal? And then a bunch of Marines get splattered, a bunch of civilians get executed, women are put back in burqas, people are being tortured, gay people are being executed, and all of these other terrible things. It's the responsibility solely of the Biden administration. I would point out, link in the description, not archived of course, this is a clip from Kamala Harris. She was queried about it with regards to Afghanistan. She said she was perfectly comfortable with the situation. Nothing's wrong here. Everything's hunky-dory. Millions of women just got re-enslaved after a brief period of reprieve. That's okay. Ha 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 ha. I expected that this video would include her cackling. Unfortunately, it didn't include that. I'm sure that if the host had brought up the idea of gay people being thrown off buildings, or women being enslaved and raped repeatedly, she probably would have burst out laughing. She finds these topics to be hilarious. I've written some weird shit in my life, like morbid stories or sickness and hell, and I like to get grotesque. I like to make the reader uncomfortable when I'm making that kind of literature. But real-life suffering is different, and Kamala doesn't appear to understand this. Real-life suffering is different from creating a bunch of characters, putting them in a book, and then they torture each other or something like that, like a Marquis de Sade sort of thing. It's fictional. It's not actually happening. There's a difference between that and a bunch of civilians and U.S. Marines getting splattered in Kabul, the fucking airbase. She finds it atrociously hilarious for unknown reasons. I legit think she's a psychopath. She's partially responsible for this situation. She could have said, Joe, I'm aware of Pashtun culture and the conventions of Afghanistan. If she was doing her job and did her homework, she would know this. It's quite clear. It's not a good idea to change the date. We need to emergency airlift our equipment out. We need to emergency airlift our troops out. We need to emergency airlift our translators and the people that we're working with in Afghanistan out. Get them out of the way, because as you know, and Joe Biden did know this, he had a phone call to the goddamn president of Afghanistan to this effect. He knew that the Afghan military would not be able to stand up to a sustained onslaught by the Taliban. Now, it's not just the Taliban, of course. If it were just the Taliban, there wouldn't have been a problem. It would have fallen into maybe civil war situation, but the Taliban wouldn't have been able to take over the country so quickly. The real problem is that you also have an enormous amount of power led by tribal warlords. And the tribal warlords were really the linchpin of what happened. You pissed them off by moving the date. You shook their hand and then slapped them in the face. They would have been they would never have joined with the Taliban. It would have been an issue of fucking family honor at that point. They would have said, we made an agreement. We're sticking to the agreement. We shook hands on it. You're asking us to attack the Afghan government. I'm not going to waste my manpower and go back on the agreement at the same time. It's disrespectful. It's not going to happen. There are parts of the world in which respect actually still plays a role. It's not so much a topic in the decadent, post-industrial West. It's a topic in Afghanistan, though. The Biden administration did not understand this. Kamala, had she been intelligent enough to even give a damn about her job, she's border czar, so look at how that panned out. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if she was unofficial Afghanistan czar or something like that, considering how bad that was fucked up. She would have told Joe, hey, this is not a good idea. Here are the top 10 reasons why. I can rattle them off myself. It's not just about cultural respect or anything like that. It was also about logistics. Biden called the fucking president of Afghanistan, who's now, I think he's in exile in Uzbekistan, if I remember correctly, or some place like Kazakhstan, maybe. He called him and acknowledged that the Afghan military couldn't deal with the situation alone and said, look, just tell your people everything's calm, everything's taken care of, everything's fine. We've literally got the audio of the call. It's been gaslit into near non-existence. Joe Biden knew what he was doing. He purposely collapsed Afghanistan. And Kamala Harris was there the whole time and gleefully and jovially supported the entire thing. Supposedly being intelligent enough to conduct foreign diplomacy. I don't think so. That's about all. Peace out.